Hey everybody, this is Coach Keith Keppner. I hope you're doing well. This video, I'm going to dive deep into the psychology of boxing. Now, I was mentored by a professional boxing coach who was my father, and he was mentored by Chuck Bodak, who was a great professional boxing coach as well as cut man. And with my father, though, him not only being a boxing coach, he was also had a PhD in neuroscience, and he was a clinical psychologist. So he understood the mind in a clinical sense, and he passed down some of that knowledge to me. And then, of course, me doing my best to be introspective with myself when I was boxing, having my own struggles, as a lot of people do, not only physically but mentally with boxing, and then also working with a wide variety of boxers at every single level, from your first day showing up to a boxing facility to you're fighting a former world champion in a professional fight. Now, this is something that you might not know you need, but after watching this video, I know you're going to walk away with some big benefits, okay? Now, make sure you stick around to the very end of the video, because I'm going to go over all of these psychological ideas, metaphors, and different tools for thinking and for grasping our own mentality. And you want to make sure you stick around for the last two, because the last two might be the main ones that you're missing. All right? Now, before we get into it, make sure you click that like button. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. I'm almost at 14,000 subscribers, guys. Let's get this above, because this is an amazing community. I really appreciate it. Comment your thoughts, what impacted you the most from this video. And then also, a great way to support the channel is to leave a super thanks, where you buy me a cup of coffee. Go down to the bottom of the video, click that heart that has the $ in it. I've had people drop a $20 super thank. Maybe you could be the first one to drop a $50 super thank. It would really help out a lot, because this takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, and I'm happy to do it. And obviously, it's a great way to pay it forward. Now, with the psychology of boxing and your own mind, it's something that's oftentimes and is really the rule that it's forgotten or overlooked. We think about the physical preparation for boxing, for a fight, and for improving in boxing. We think about the technical preparation and improvement, but we don't think about the mental. And from what I've seen from my experience, the mental can be the one thing that's the difference between a winner and a loser. I remember Chuck Bodak, who was my father's boxing mentor, who worked with over 50 world champions. He was a professional boxing coach and a professional cut man. And he talked about getting in the habit of winning. My dad asked him, well, how do you get, Chuck, in that habit of winning? And Chuck said, well, if you can figure that out, you'll become a champion. And that's what champions do, is they figure out how to build the habit of winning. And I'm going to do my best to give you some of the things that I've seen and experienced, and that I've seen make a big effect with people from their first day of boxing to they've been in it for 10 or 15 years. But we've all seen it. We've all seen the guy that can barely throw a proper punch, can barely defend punches. He knows so little about the technique. And he's in relatively okay shape, good shape. For a fighter, he's in okay shape. But obviously, okay shape in the world of fighting is very, very good shape. But his mentality. Just to talk about mentality for a moment, think about someone like James Toney. He didn't come to a lot of his fights in world-class shape. But obviously, his ring experience, his skills, but also his mentality. Easy to overlook. But if you overlook it, you'll overlook it at your own cost, and you might not know when it is actually the thing that's been getting in your way the whole time. You're working on the skills, you're working on the techniques, you're working on getting in better shape. You're trying to find that magic solution, but really, the magic is in your own mind. The first thing we're going to talk about, it's a real basic one, but it's really important. The poker face. A lot of you guys know the reasons why, but I'm going to talk about it because maybe it's a reminder, or you hear it now a different way. And for those of you guys that are newer to boxing, or maybe been around for a long time and you've never heard of this, well, it's time for you to hear about it. A big thing. A poker face is basically just not showing what you're thinking, not revealing any pain you have, any concern you have, any fear you have, any enjoyment you have, really anything. It's really almost like the lack of emotion. Now, granted, there's many types of fighters out there. Some fighters show more emotion than others. But as a general rule, what I have found is that the fighters who can control their emotions and only reveal what they want to reveal are the more successful ones. Which again goes to the poker face. Because, now don't get me wrong, I never have really played poker, but I know the concepts of the not revealing what is in your hand. But if you have a great situation, right, like if you're playing poker, then a great hand, then you don't necessarily want to reveal that. And if you have a horrible hand, you don't want to reveal that either. And that's where the poker face comes in, because now it gives your enemy, it gives your opponent, and yes, they are your enemy while they're in the ring with you. I'm really big about respecting other boxers and about showing appreciation and everything else, and acting professionally, 100%. I don't like all the pre-fight build-up, drama and antics, and the stuff that people get into that's really personal outside of the ring. But when we're in the ring, it is personal. I'm not saying that means you have to take it out of the ring, but when you're in the ring, it is personal. When you're competing against another individual, that is personal. Like my dad would always say to me, that person across the ring is trying to hurt you. They're trying to put you in the hospital. They're trying to take away all of your dreams. Everything that you fantasize about achieving with boxing, they would love to see that snatched away from you. So remember that when you look across that ring at that person. Might change how you approach the situation. But a great example of the poker face is, of course, Joe Louis. Famous for the poker face. He would not reveal at any point in time what was going on. If he was tired, if he was hurt, if he was excited, if he was worried. And when you're going against somebody like that, they don't give you any tell. They don't give you any feedback. Let's think about the opposite of it. When you sense someone is a little bit scared, or a little bit hurt, or a little bit tired, you go after them really hard, or harder. It gives you energy, right? Think about when you throw punches at people and they flinch away from it and things like that. That makes you feel great about yourself. It gives you that extra motivation in that moment to keep going. You know, it's a positive reinforcement that you're giving to somebody if you don't have a poker face. Now, contrast that with the person that has a great poker face, that looks at you with just a stone face when you hit them with your best shot. You feel the energy draining from you. So remember that for yourself. Develop a great poker face. Develop the habit of really, it's almost like the idea of being stoic, right? Not revealing the emotion. Controlling the emotion as well, because we can control an emotion by not revealing it, and also being able to master the emotions, especially in life. But we're talking about this sport called boxing. Someone can psych you up, piss you off, freak you out, and it can throw off what you need to be doing. Going on to the next item, a little less commonly thought about or known, anchoring. All right, so what is anchoring? Right, it's a ritual basically that a lot of athletes do this, where they do this and that to kind of get themselves in the zone, to get them almost primed for elite performance. You have to find out what yours is. I'll give you an example though of one fighter that I studied a lot and based a lot of what I did personally off of as a boxer was Joe Frazier. If you notice, Joe, at the start of just about every single round, he smacks his gloves together. He cracks them together. And this, apparently, is just part of it. I'm not saying it's the only thing. I'm not saying you do this and now you're Joe Frazier, or that Joe Frazier had to do that in order to be aggressive and locked in his fight, but it's just part of the ritual, part of how he conducted himself and got himself in that peak place for performance. So you don't have to have a weird ritual, but you want to have some type of anchoring mentally that you can find. You find it typically in sparring and in drills and sometimes pad work, where it's this certain extra edge of being mean, being focused, being confident, being dominant, which we're going to talk about later. And once you find that, then you need to find a way to recreate it. And sometimes it can be just as easily as just flipping the switch in your own mind. That's something that, so it's funny, I turned around and realized I was actually smacking my gloves together just like Joe Frazier did. But with time, I've seen, my guys and with myself, able to just get yourself in that certain place mentally where you have that edge, right? And that edge, we talk about edges, right? An edge can be a conditioning edge, it can be a skill edge, or it can be a psychological edge. And if you severely lack in the psychological edge, your conditioning and skills don't matter because your execution will be so weak, right? And you won't trust your conditioning. So don't get overly worried if you don't find an exact ritual, but like I said, understand when you get that feeling and then do your best to recreate it all the time. We're going to talk about that more later. Leading into that, the domination mindset, right? So once we find that feeling, that's our domination mindset, we need to do our best to cultivate it every time you train. And every time it's not in your mind while you're training, it's a useless train. You're going through reps. You're going through emotions. You're just punching the clock. You're not actively engaged. Because if we are going to be fighting and competing with that edge, the winning edge, that is cultivated, not just in competition, but in the gym. So I can't stress this enough, guys. The mindset of domination, that you are going to dominate your opponent, the person you are up against. Not that you are going to hang in there with them, survive. I've worked with a lot of fighters, tried to save a lot of fighters that had the survival mindset of not domination, but that I'm just going to finish the fight. That was the goal. I'm going to finish the fight. They signed for a pro fight. The goal in that pro fight is to finish the fight. No, that's not the goal. The goal is to win the fight. That should be the only reason why you're signing up for a pro fight. I know there's a lot of professional opponents out there, essentially, but I don't approve of that. I don't think that's a path that anyone needs to take. A gatekeeper, maybe, but what makes a gatekeeper really a gatekeeper is they might be able to take you out there in that moment, and sometimes they do. They're able to pull it up or pull it out. But the gatekeeper is someone who just can't do it consistently, right? Who's fought at the higher levels, and you have to get through to get to that high level. But they just can't do it consistently, and that's why they're not at the high level. And that's the difference. Gatekeeper is just in as good a shape, everything else just has the same skills, largely, but their mind is not locked in to dominate. And that hasn't been cultivated through maybe no fault of their own. Going on to the next one, we need to disrespect them, our opponent, in our own mind. Now, some people, they do this outwardly. They disrespect them physically, and they speak to them disrespectfully. Again, like I said earlier, I'm not a fan of this. I recommend you don't do this. All right? Also, too, it's a high likelihood that everyone will lose at some point, and you're going to look like quite an ass after disrespecting someone in some of the ways that we've seen people disrespect people, right? And then they get their butt handed to them. But we disrespect them in our own mind because that's all that's required. Some people, they need to talk a lot of crap to psych themselves up. But of course, if you're relying on that too much, you don't have the internal confidence and locus of control that you might need to be at the higher level. But when you over-respect somebody, we've probably almost all been there. You hear about somebody with a lot of experience that you're going up against in a fight or a sparring session, and you give them too much respect, too much benefit of the doubt that they're better than you. I challenge you to get rid of this as much as possible. You step in the ring with, let's say you're an amateur fighter, you step in there with a pro fighter, have the attitude that this is the day, or this might be the day at least. Have that sense of questioning in the good way, that this might be the day that I really shine. I know there's a few times when I was sparring as an amateur and I would get in the ring with a superior boxer or a pro boxer, and I would fortunately have that mindset, is that this is my chance to level up. I'm going to shine with this opportunity. And turn what can be a stumbling block, right, going in the ring against someone a lot better than you, turn it into a stepping stone. Because heck, you hang in there, you maybe go, punch for punch. That's a great thing against someone higher than you, higher level. But if you're in a fight going against someone and you have any concern, or rather over-respect of what they're doing, it's going to make you overreact and not be in control. Now, it's important to remember, because all of us, I'm going to say, feel fear at one time or another. And if you don't, there's something psychologically wrong with you. Now, granted, all fighters are a little bit crazy, right? So if you're a little bit crazy sometimes, or all the time, that's okay, because everyone that fights is a little bit crazy. Everyone that, it's like one of our family friends that was also a big inspiration for me as a coach. He was actually a Muay Thai coach, but psychologically he was an inspiration for me as a coach and as a man. And he's passed. But he said, everyone that fights is a little bit crazy. That's true. But if you're feeling that fear, I remember seeing an interview where one of the greatest warriors in the ring, Evander Holyfield, who's seems like the most fearless guy, he said that with a lot of his amateur fights, at least early on, he would wish the guy didn't show up, wish his opponent would not show up for the match. Think about that. Have you ever felt like that? I know I've felt like that from time to time. Maybe you have as well. Where you're like, man, I kind of hope the guy doesn't show up. Or man, I kind of hope that good guy that hits really hard isn't going to show up for sparring today. Right? Even Evander Holyfield, great heavyweight champion, felt the same exact way. But of course, like the coward and the hero, right? They feel the same, but the only thing that's different is their actions. It's what they do that makes them different. So of course, the coward, if Evander Holyfield was a coward, or if you were a coward, that person shows up that you didn't want to show up, you leave. You find an excuse, right? The hero steps in there, even with the fear, and does it anyway. Now, when we're feeling this fear, though, a very important thing to remember is to not try to force yourself to, quote, not think about it, all right? We have to replace it, all right? So this is something, it's the idea of substitution. So instead of don't be scared, don't be afraid, don't be tense, don't be this or that or the other thing, what you need to do is replace it. And you could replace it with something neutral or something positive. A great example of the fear concept is, instead of saying, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, because the brain doesn't quite register the not part. It registers the I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid part, right? For instance, like with instructions, with coaching, don't drop your hands, don't drop your hands, don't drop your hands. To process that, you have to first process drop the hands, and then the opposite of that, which is the don't part. You don't hear that statement and hear don't and then think hands up, right? You hear the word don't, and then you're waiting for the wrong thing to go in your mind, which is the dropping the hands, and then your mind has to go back again and say, okay, the opposite, raise the hands. Now, of course, all this happens in milliseconds, but we don't need that focus broken for a moment. We instead need to focus on the outcomes. Keep your hands up, keep your hands up, keep your chin down, keep your chin down, chin down. It's also more of a direct command, right? Less words, but also it's a more direct command to the mind. So instead of don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, make it I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm hyped up, right? I'm ready for the challenge. figuring out these different little phrases that will maybe first start in your vocabulary and then dig into the roots of your mind, or the opposite. You start to grow them in your mind and they start to come out in words. But oftentimes I find the easiest way is to change how you talk. Watch how you talk. Make sure that you aren't saying disempowering things that everyone thinks, oh, that makes you humble. But really, it makes you ineffective. Now, don't be a jerk, but say confident things. I'm ready for the challenge. I'm looking forward to this excitement or to this opportunity, right? You're going against the ring, someone way better than you, it's a big opportunity. All right, so going on to the next one, embrace the suck, right? This is not my phrase. I guess this is a phrase, I can't remember where I heard it. I think a branch of the military maybe says it's like the Marines or something like that. Forgive me if I'm misquoting where it's from, but the idea of embrace the suck, right? What does that mean? Embrace the pain. Embrace the discomfort. Lean into it. Don't shy away from it, right? Go into the wind. So when you get hit, embracing the suck, right? Not shying away from the punch, not leaning, fearfully away from it and just cowering from it, but embracing it. Embracing it. And that mere idea, like with getting hit, of embracing it in a weird way, allows you to take a better punch, I've found. Because a lot of times, a punch's power is partially psychological. I've seen a lot of people, again, don't be wrong, you can get knocked the hell out and be the toughest SOB out there, or the most fearless, because it's a physical law that anyone can get knocked out. But I have seen many people on their boxing journey start off not being able to take a punch. They'll get hit by a headshot or a body shot and go down. They can't handle it. The physical feelings are just too much for them. And they haven't learned to embrace the suck yet, embrace the pain yet. And to say, yeah, in their mind, give me more, right? A little bit of that almost like a sadistic type idea. And that's where the sport of boxing is a really weird thing, because it's right on those lines psychologically with a lot of really maladaptive behavior, but it's encompassed in a beautiful sport. And just like with life, though, too, we have the dark side and the light side, and we all need both, right? The idea of that if someone is a nice person, right, kind, considerate, doesn't go around hurting people and things like that, physically or mentally, if they're completely impotent and not able to do that, they're not worthy of respect. The person that is worthy of respect is the person that is dangerous, that is capable of horrible, evil things, but chooses not to do them because they are good. That's a person worthy of respect because they control their dark side, but that dark side is there. But if you don't have a dark side and you're like a domesticated animal, right? They couldn't lash out. That's not it's not praiseworthy. It's not honorable. It's not desirable. Now, embrace the suck also goes to when you get tired, right? When you get tired, a lot of times there'll be two types of toughness that I see with boxing. There's the toughness to, well, really three. I'm going to say actually. I normally always say two, but I kind of just thought of a third one, honestly. Talk about the mentality. The first one is normally I would say there's two, and that's the toughness to deal with punishment, to get hit, right? To get hit with big shots to the head and to the body and deal with that pain. And then there's the other type of toughness to deal with the pain of exertion, of your heart rate going up, of fatigue, of all the icky feelings you feel when you are pushing yourself to the limit physically. Those are two different types of toughness. I know because I had mainly one of them. The ability to absorb punishment, but the toughness of pushing myself beyond fatigue was hard. It's very hard. I remember a lot of times with training sessions, this guy, Robbie, that would help me out with conditioning, he did a good thing for me. did many good things for me, but one good thing he did for me specifically that stuck with me was when I would be getting tired, I would lean over, right? I would bend over at the waist, and I would show that I was tired. Going back to that poker face, right? I'm showing that I'm tired. I'm revealing what's going on. He would say, Keith, I know you're tired. I know you're tired. And it's funny, that little thing of him just saying, I know you're tired. It was an interesting little, kind of got me out of my mind there where, like, oh yeah, you're right. Like I physically don't have to bend over at the waist. I don't have to, like, hold my body in this fashion to show this guy that I'm tired. I don't have to do that. I can embrace the suck of the pain of fatigue. I can embrace it instead of feeling it and being like, okay, well, I'm going to act a certain way now that I am tired. Right? It's a really interesting thing, and it's something that you need to take into account with your training. A lot of football players that I work with, guys that come from football, rather, who have played football through high school, they come to me, they start boxing, and we get them going pretty good. They'll fall out a lot of times, meaning just like after a round's over, just fall on the floor, right? To show that they're tired, to show that they worked hard. And it's a reprogramming. Hey, just walk it off, walk it off. And that's what it was for me at first, right? I wanted to sit down after every round, sit down after every hard interval. But it's just first walk it off, walk it off. Then next is compose yourself, right? Then next is completely make it unobvious to anybody around that you're tired. Where you're tired as hell. Where you can barely stand up. But you're not showing it because you're embracing the suck. So it's a little bit of the poker face and embracing the suck. But then I said there's two, and there's a third one that I just thought of. Here's the third one. They don't have the mental toughness. Okay, so they have the toughness to get hit, to absorb punishment, brutal punishment. They have the toughness to push themselves past fatigue in order to win, in order to be dominant, in order to be triumphant. But they can't deal with the psychological pressure of a moment, of big stakes on the line, of somebody making fun of them, of someone giving them mental pressure. It's another type of toughness that we have to be able to deal with. And that's where all this other stuff will help you with an opponent that attempts to wage psychological warfare on you. Facing the fear quickly. There's a concept which is kill the lion while it's still a cub. Right? If you have a lion threat, I would much rather battle a cub, a little baby lion. So if anything that we're dealing with, if we can face it while it's still a baby, our job's going to be a lot easier and a lot more doable than if we wait for it to grow over time and become gigantic and become a massive, powerful man-eater. This is what happens with our fears. When we don't embrace, or rather go towards our fear and kill it and give it time to grow, it's going to possibly kill us and kill our dreams, kill our goals, kill what we could be, and kill our potential. So kill that lion while it's still a cub. Any fear you feel about with boxing or with anything in life, the more you avoid it, the more you steer away from it, the bigger the fear can grow. So let's say you're maybe in the gym and you've never had a fight before, and that's something you want to do. Start steering yourself in that direction. Obviously, you need to be prepared. Obviously, it takes some time for some people to get prepared. I've had people go from zero training to literally zero boxing to within 3 months win like a state Golden Gloves championship where they went 3-0 in the tournament. I've had people where it's taken them 2 years to get to their first fight, and they lose their first fight. And that's okay. And then they get back in there and they win. Now, if you avoid making that commitment of, I'm going to get my first fight. You start talking to your coach. I want to get my first fight. Right? I want to start steering that direction. If that's what your goal is, if that's what you're interested in doing, the longer you wait to make those commitments, to start going after it, the bigger the fear might grow until it just engulfs you. And then you'll live a life of quiet desperation, watching other people do what you want to do or wish you could do, and be like that audience out there. We don't want to be like that, my friends. All right, now, the next thing about face the fear quickly and facing it is, if a bear is charging you, right? I know I've seen this video going along that shows this exact concept of a big, I think it's a grizzly bear running after a kind of a floodplain towards a guy, and the guy faces the fear, faces the bear, and the bear is going full speed, and you know that just this thing can crush this guy just in a moment. But the guy faces the bear off, and with all that momentum coming, that bear veers off. Same thing happens with boxing. You have the equivalent of a grizzly bear, and if you face that grizzly bear, right, you stand up to the challenge, the same thing can happen. And I've seen the same thing happen. And then, of course, a famous example of this happening is with Evander Holyfield, going back to Evander, and Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was the grizzly bear, and Evander was that guy. And he faced the bear, and the bear veered off. First fight, TKO loss for Tyson. Next fight, Tyson got so frustrated, bit his ear because the same thing was probably going to happen. So take that little gem and plug that into your sparring and into your fights. Face the bear head on. Now, this is the last concept. The spirit of the sniper. Non-emotional killing. Now, I use these really extreme words, like killing. It's just a sport. We need to protect the sanctity of life 100%. What is weird about this sport is that what I have seen, what I have found, is you need to have, like I mentioned earlier, that dark side to you that is in control and only comes out in that ring and within the rules of that ring. Because you can have a dark side that comes out that's going to break the rules of the ring and get DQ'd. It's no good. We don't want that. But it gets funneled into anything you can do within the rules. And so, put another way, I'm going to do everything I can within the rules to kill this person. It's extreme. It's really extreme. And remember, you have a doctor, you have the opponent's corner, and you have the referee. You have 3 lines of defense. And you have a commission of some type. If it's a pro fight, you have the athletic commission. If it's amateur fight, you have USA Boxing. You have people there to protect your opponent. It's not your job to protect them. Right? And that's where the sport's really odd. Combat sports are. Legitimate combat sports. Where you're doing everything within the rules to cause as much damage and inflict as much pain on that person, frankly, as fast as possible. So again, the idea of I'm going to do everything I can within the rules to kill this person. Embracing that and that edge in the ring, I have found for myself to be very helpful, and for boxers that I coach. With myself, when I was able to get over that precipice and step into the world of being more dominant in the ring for a time, it was, I've told this story before, but I was going to spar someone I sparred all the time. They were around my size, around my level, and, we were always kind of just neck and neck, kind of 50-50. And I went to the bathroom. When I was in the bathroom, which was actually outside, I said to myself, man, I'm just gonna let it loose. I'm gonna let everything loose. I'm not gonna do anything wrong. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna take the brakes off myself. Right? I'm gonna have that idea of the sniper where you have someone in your sights and you just pull the trigger. Bam. There's no emotion. There's no hatred. There's no anything. You're doing a job. It's separate from emotion. Because I thought before that I had to get angry, right? I had to get, mad. I had to get, I had to listen to some hardcore freaking gangster rap music or something to be aggressive to get after somebody. And then I realized it's like, man, I can do all those things, but minus the emotional part, which actually clouds your judgment, slows you down, tires you out, all those things. It just disrupts everything. So that non-emotional, sniper-like attitude of you're just going to take somebody out, it's a game changer, and it can make a big difference for you, I know. Now let's recap. Going through these, because one of these things, if not all of them, but maybe just one, you're going to walk away from this video taking into your training, your sparring, and your fights. Or if you're overseeing somebody, coaching somebody, maybe this is something that they're missing. It probably is. That if they're winning, it's going to help them win more. Or if they're not winning or not doing what they need to be doing in that ring, this can help get them over the hump. And remember, guys, with anybody and everybody, it's all about you. It's all about you. Boxing is a very selfish sport. It's all about what you, the fighter, does. No coach can make you great. No coach can give you the right mentality, a winning spirit, even the skills. Because I have seen boxers with just all-time great coaches not do well. All right? It's not the coach's fault. And I've seen extremely great boxers with coaches that do not know how to wrap hands, do not know how to teach, do not know how to explain anything, and if anything, barely know how to demonstrate. And I've seen those fighters some of them be massively successful. So remember, it is up to you. All right, so recapping though, poker face. Like we talked about Joe Louis, anchoring, have something, a set routine or slight ritual, or at least know the mindset and mind place that you need to be in, the frame of mind to do the high level work that you need to do in that ring. Domination mindset, and that is that domination mindset. Cultivating it. The idea of I'm going to dominate you because you're going to try to take everything away from me. Something as little as just the W, right? Or your health, or your life. This is serious business. You can lose your life in the ring, and if you play around and don't have that attitude, I feel you're playing with fire. Disrespect them mentally in your own mind. Lower them. Embrace the suck, and do that every day in training and in sparring and in fighting. And then face that fear quickly, right? Face that fear quickly before it gets a chance to grow and get bigger. I'll give you an example real quick on that one that I left out earlier. I had this one fighter that's now a coach of mine, and they only had about maybe 5 or 6 fights under me, and they won a tournament, and then the very next fight they got stopped by a smaller person. So just like they just had trouble with that person. That person just caught them. They got stopped, and they weren't like knocked cold or anything, but they got rocked and everything else. So I gave them proper time to recover, but as quickly as possible, I did my best to get that person back in the ring. And this person's a woman, so it was hard to get them a fight, but I did my best to just get them back in the ring because I needed them to just not let that fear grow into this giant thing that now is going to hold them back from any possible further competition or anything else like that. And also, frankly, just be left in their own mind as this big monster that got them. All right? And the last one is the spirit of the sniper. The non-emotional, cold-blooded execution, doing what you need to do, everything within the rules to accomplish the goal, which, at the end of the day, if you're tired of losing close decisions, if you're a pro fighter, maybe getting draws, you got to stop people. If you can stop people, no ref, and no judge can steal it away from you. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you click like, subscribe, comment below, share what were some of your biggest takeaways, and great way to support the channel, drop a super thanks. I really appreciate all the support, guys, that's come out, and it really helps a lot. Appreciate your support, everybody, and watch out for the next video.